Hi, this is Vinny from the iMoot team and Pukunui. And I'm here today to talk about gamification, getting started with gamification. So this is a presentation introducing some different aspects of gamification that you can build into your online e-learning courses. So the first part of the presentation will be an overview of these ideas and concepts. The second part will be looking specifically how we can put some of these ideas into Moodle. So this is me, hi. What I'll do is kill my webcam to conserve the bandwidth. Feel free to jump in on the chat if you've got any questions. Then please just pop them into the chat as we go along, and I'll try to answer them. But I'm not great at multitasking, so I'll probably try and stop every now and again to read anything that you put in there. A little bit about me and my background. So I've been using Moodle, to be honest, I can't remember how long, maybe 11, 12 years, long time. I think the first version that I started on was maybe possibly 1.5. Same as a lot of people setting it up for a school. Actually, in my case, it was a headmaster that came up to me and said, "Hey, have you heard about this thing called Moodle? Let's have a look at it." And then I've been involved with Moodle ever since, setting it up for various schools. I'm a published author. I wrote a book, Science Teaching with Moodle 2.0 for Pact Publishing. I used Moodle as a chemistry teacher for around about 16 years. Sorry, I was a chemistry teacher for 16 years, and using Moodle for maybe the last few years of that before I left teaching to solely focus on working for Pukunui and the kind of things that we do. I've also been running the iMoot for the last 4 years. So I used to help out the iMoot team, and for the last couple of years been one of the lead organizers for the iMoot. So I thought I'd start off, as a lot of presentations do, with a quote. Why is this relevant to gamification? Well, I guess this is a bit of a preamble for the presentation. I'm going to give you a bunch of different ideas that you can take away and use. However, it takes an awful lot of time to put to gamify Moodle courses and to do it well. Which I guess is the root of that quote. But once it is done well, then your audience, your users, your students, kind of don't almost see what you've done and the amount of time and effort that it takes to make a quality e-learning gamified course. Okay, so the first part of this presentation, we're going to take a look at some certain different concepts. And so the first one of these concepts is game components. So these are the kinds of things, you probably do these in your Moodle courses anyway, but they're an important part of gamified Moodle courses. So things like avatars and personification, if you can make your Moodle course a reflection of you, if you can put in to it aspects of your own personality, you immediately engage in your students. And once you've kind of got that engagement, then you can actually do something with it. And certainly, at the bare minimum, you need that either some kind of like a video introduction or a picture of yourself, just so that your students can kind of get to know you, especially if you're using e-learning in a remote teaching context. I don't know if you guys teach a kind of blended curriculum and use Moodle to back up your face-to-face teaching, but certainly, you need to kind of get that into your Moodle courses to kind of give them a bit of your personality. Other components. So I'm just going to lay out some components, and then a little later we'll look at how we can put these together. Some kind of scoring systems within your courses. And of course, you've got all the grade books, so points from quizzes and things like that, and awarding badges. But I think the important thing is to try and think about how you can use them in terms of gaming a course. Other components that are useful for gamified courses is that idea of progress and levels. This popped into my Facebook feed the other day, and I quite like it. But all games, if you think about any game, there's it needs to have some kind of progression, levels, either getting harder, getting faster, or advancing through that game. And so if you're going to gamify a Moodle course, you need those kind of aspects into it as well. So how you can give your users levels, how you can show that progress to them. Another component of games, and I'm certainly not saying use all of these, but certain ones you might want to use in certain contexts, is to have elements of either missions or exploration of resources or exploration of Moodle course. That kind of allowing students to explore content. It gives them that freedom, and it really starts to kind of fire off all those neurons in their brain, which is all good for retaining knowledge. If they've got that ability to investigate all the material on your courses, if it's you could map it out for them, or if it's a particular route that you carve through all of your teaching materials. That's not an exhaustive list, but those are just some of the different kind of components that you can put into courses to begin to gamify them. So the next part of gamifying a Moodle course is the control mechanisms, how you're going to control your users' behavior within the Moodle course. And so this is kind of talking about the actual mechanics. So every game, it has its set rules, and a lot of the time those rules are designed to create some kind of repetitive behavior in the users, whether it's rounds or turns and all of that kind of thing. Some kind of repetitive behavior to kind of turn it into a repeating place that they keep going back to again and again. So that can be things like turns. You certainly need to get in ideas of how to win the game, which could be how they would complete your Moodle course. And also rewards and failure are very strong ways to control the behavior of the users within your gamified Moodle course. So, and again, rewards could be linked to the badges or the points. They're both rewards and failure are both very, very strong motivating factors. And so if you've got these activities set up in your courses that can automatically release rewards like automatic badge awarding and things like that, then you're going to get your users coming back and back again and again and again to look at the materials. Feedback's another important mechanism to have within your Moodle course, so that once your users are tackling something, they get some kind of feedback. They know whether they're on the right path or on the right route, or it could return them back to the material. If they're getting the material wrong, it can give them some support material to either help them progress through different levels or to help them to progress to the end of the course. And also elements of both teamwork and competition can be used either both of the time in the same course, or different parts of the course could have different elements of teamwork and competition. And both, again, are very strong motivating factors to get students either cooperating, learning the material because they don't want to let the team down, or if they're trying to compete so that they can win the game, they can get the most points, the most badges. So all of these are kind of mechanisms that you can build into your Moodle course to kind of control that user behavior. And this, I don't know if you know these books. These were from many moons ago when I was young. They're the Fighting Fantasy Build Your Own Adventure books, where you turn to start reading it, and a goblin would come up. Do you want to run away? Do you want to fight him? If you want to run away, go to page 10. If you if you want to fight him, go to page 20. And when I was preparing for this presentation, I was thinking about these, the kind of exploring aspects that you can get into your Moodle courses. And I was thinking back to these books, and it was such, when I saw the cover of this popped up on a Google search that I was doing, and it was such an emotional response from something that I was so into when I was young. And if you can get those experiences, if you can get those emotional responses into your Moodle courses, then again, it's that engaging factor that can really turn your learners on and keep them coming back to the same place. So the kind of experiences, I put these into a section because they're all kind of more what the user would experience, and especially thoughts and feelings, to be able to give the users control. So especially if you're planning out some kind of gamified course that involves ideas of exploration, you've got to have those ideas of choice and control within the Moodle course. They need to be able to choose their path through the course. They need to be able somehow to control their destiny through the Moodle course. Other kind of experiences you can build into it, the idea of challenge. One of the most motivating things that you can do is present students with challenging material. If the material is too easy, they're not going to be engaged. And that's a kind of something that helps to build their intrinsic motivation. They find it hard, it's a challenge. That's right, it's got to be pitched at the right level. It's got to be an achievable challenge. just to kind of put them slightly outside their comfort zone. But as a good teacher, you know that, with some hard work, they'll be able to achieve it. And of course, fun and engagement. If it's interesting, if you can engage the users, then really half your job is done. And that goes for any teaching, really, whether it's a gamified course or face-to-face teaching, or if you think back to the lessons that you enjoyed the most, it's more likely that it will be the ones that the lessons and subjects that you did well in school. It's more likely to be the ones that you was really engaged with because of aspects you found interesting, or if it was fun. And again, it's all these kind of positive emotional attachments that you have to particular subjects. So those are just some different things that you can put into your Moodle courses. So let's have a look how we can actually do that. So what resources have we got that we can begin to gamify our Moodle course? Probably the lesson is one of the most powerful tools for gamifying specific. I'm going to start actually with activities. So if we're talking about gamifying individual activities within a Moodle course, then the lesson is probably one of the most useful for that. So this one that I've got here, this is an example from Moodle.net, uploaded by Mary Cooch. It's can you make a revolution? It's very similar to the fighting fantasy, make your own adventure books, where you have a series of questions and different options after each question, and you kind of find your path through the story, either to the end or you fail it, and you can have an option to repeat it. So that would be an example of a particular activity within Moodle that is gamified within a Moodle course. And the interesting thing is when you start to kind of put a few things together. So I actually used this as an example when I was doing a gamification workshop, and I linked up the results from this lesson activity to an activity, the activity results block, which used to be a few versions ago. It used to be the quiz results block, now called the activity results block. And I put my students into trainees. I put my trainees into two different groups. So it was the whole theme of the training that I was running was a Star Wars kind of theme. Hence the two groups were BB-8 and R2-D2. So I put these trainees into two groups and let them have a go. And immediately, with a couple of simple things, I'd put a load of gamification elements into my course. So I had users that had the control over the material in a particular activity. They had that feeling of being able to explore a particular resource. They were working in groups, so immediately the two groups kind of split up and they started getting competitive with the opposing group. But then within the groups, because it was a blended situation, they were cooperating and they were beginning to help each other out and tell people how to, how to get through to the end of the activity. And it was just amazing how it highlighted to me just a few small, simple tweaks to a Moodle course can kind of really bring on that engagement with the users. And one of the biggest things that you can do to gamify your Moodle courses now, so this would be looking at a whole course. Badges I've mentioned already, so having badges being released, and those badges you can begin to level. They don't all have to be, different pictures. You could have, in fact, I did this for the iMoot a few years ago, different levels of forum participation. So I had a bronze, a silver, and a gold. And the badges were released depending on the number of posts and replies to other people's posts. So gradually, people were kind of progressing through those levels, and also trying to achieve more. Because they, if they were being issued with a bronze one, it was automatically they started to try and figure out how to get the silver and the gold. Conditional access and restrict access. I won't talk. Yeah, hunting. So in the chat, Maureen's just put hunting and gathering. Yeah, when I was doing the gamification workshop, so this was about 3-4 weeks ago. I hid a load of just tiny little images within the Moodle course. Just kind of linked them up, so added them as image resources into an orphan section at the bottom, and then linked them up in things like blocks and forum posts, and just kind of hid a bunch of different stuff, little Easter eggs around the course. And it was amazing to see these participants just spending ages just trying to hunt all over the course to try to find all these little Easter eggs and collect a lot of them. Where was I? Conditional access and restrict access. Yeah, again, if this is something that you've not looked at before, there's plenty of tutorials and things like that out there. Go and have a little look. We've got, if you have a look at our YouTube channel, there's hundreds of videos there from all the past iMoots. Plenty on conditional access and restrict access, but you can use those two together to begin to, if I put it into a gamification context, to begin to create these paths through the materials, or to give students options. That kind of thing takes a lot of time to work out. You need to sit down and plan it on paper, work out the route that you want the students to take through certain materials. But all of those tools are there. And so you can have things appearing and disappearing, dependent on scores and whether students have looked at other things going through your course. So the first bit back then was looking at a few individual activities, gamifying a few activities. That was gamifying Moodle courses. So let's have a look how a couple of ideas what we can do to gamify a whole Moodle site. So again, just 3 quick, simple ideas, and I've got some steps there to represent levels. One idea which would be nice to implement is a much more structured different levels for teachers. So at the moment, you've got your non-editing teacher and your editing teacher. Well, why not have a whole range of different levels for teachers? If I was going into a school or a university setting up Moodle, I would take away most of the permissions for the teachers and just let them do the bare minimum that they can get away with. So things like, in fact, I wouldn't let them upload resources straight away. I just allow them to create a new role and just allow them to, say, create forums and create assignment activities, something simple like that. And then once they'd proved that they're competent in those two, then you could release another few activities. So, for instance, after doing those, you could maybe let them upload resources. After that, you could let them add some of the more advanced activities. And that way, you could build up a whole different hierarchy of levels for your teachers. And you could, you could call it level 1 teacher, level 2 teacher, level 3 teacher, or something more ambiguous if you think that it might not be, they might not treat it very, they might not appreciate that. It could be colours of the rainbow or something to keep it, so they didn't know which level they were on, or and the level of their peers. But that's something that you could fairly easily implement in a Moodle site. You do need to have admin permissions on your Moodle sites to be able to create roles. Or if you don't have admin permissions, you can sketch out, what those roles should be, and then tell your admin, hold on, I want to be able to do this. Either create a new role for me within Moodle so that I can do this, or this is what I want, and ask them to set it up for you. But it's not a tricky thing. If you want to know more about editing roles and creating new roles, I did a presentation 2 years ago, I think, at the iMoots. Again, that's on our YouTube channel. But that's really powerful. So you could kind of get some game elements across your Moodle site. And it's a similar idea for students. However, editing the student role, there isn't really much that you would want to change on the student role. But you could have a bunch of copies of the student role. And then again, name them, student level 1, student level 2, student level 3, and kind of depending on their scores or something, and then kind of progress them through different groups or different levels. It'd just be a way that you could indicate on the site some kind of level that the student's at. Restriction by course completion is another thing that you could do if you wanted more of that kind of carving a path through certain materials. Well, you can set up course completion on Moodle so that they cannot complete course B until they've completed course A. They still have access to both of them, but then you can start to link courses together. So if you've got a bunch of small courses and you want students to be able to do them in a particular order, then you can use course completion to do that. There's also a few really nice plugins that you can add to your Moodle site that can help you with this. So the last part for today, we'll have a look at a few plugins. Two similar but different plugins. I don't know if you guys have used these before, but the progress bar and checklist. So the checklist comes as a plugin and also a block. Sorry, an activity and a block. The progress bar is just as a block. Yeah, I just stick both of them on your Moodle site and have a play and see which one you prefer. So Davo Smith's maintainer of the checklist, and Michael Dorat is developer and maintainer of the progress bar. But yeah, they're both really cool. The progress bar kind of has it for me. That's my personal favorite. You can see the overview I really like of the students in the progress bar. And also with the progress bar, it does collate across different courses. So you can start to see an overview of your students through different courses if you've got the right permissions. Just having a quick look at the chat there. So Maureen's saying there's Those are awesome. Yeah, yeah, great. Kim's agreeing. Okay, this is one that you might not have come across. This is the plugin called Ranking, and it works with activity completion tracking and awards if it's an activity. So first of all, you'd need to have activity completion enabled on your site and your course, and then you'd need to set up some activities that had completion tracking on them. If it's an activity that normally isn't awarded any points, so things like clicking on a URL or looking at a book, let's say a book resource, book activity, book resource. If it's something that isn't normally awarded any points, then the ranking block awards 2 points for it. You can change, there's all default settings, you can change all those. But by default, it would give you give the student 2 points every time they click on a URL resource, let's say. If it's a graded activity, so if it's something that needs grades, it will award the student the grade the number of points that it got from that quiz, 10 out of 10 or whatever, plus these 2 extra points. So quite quickly, you can begin to create things like leaderboards and get ideas of competition in your Moodle course. Kind of like, it's a kind of proof of gaining experience, even if they're just kind of clicking on some of your resources and things like that. Every time they're doing it, they're getting a small recognition, they're getting a few points, and those points are slowly getting added up. And it will display weekly, monthly overviews, how many points your students are getting. Slightly more advanced than that is this plugin by Frederick Massart. Experience points, it's called. It's a part of a set called Experience Points. There's 2 parts to it. One, if I zoom in, there we go. So one part of it is a block, experience points block called Level Up, and another part of it is availability. It's a similar idea to the previous plugin that I showed you, where students get points for exploring and just spending time in your course, basically, and experiencing things. And there's a certain number of levels that they can progress through, and again, it's pretty customizable, getting points as they go. But the difference with this one is that it's also linked to an availability a restriction setting, so that you can say these materials are only available until the student achieves at least level 5. So then you can start to do some really cool stuff. Quite easily you can have topic sections appearing after they've completed other stuff, and you can get some really good gamification stuff going in your courses there. It's probably worth me spending a little bit more time on this plugin, so I'm going to scroll across to this one. You get a nice, as a teacher, you get a nice overview of the progress. You can see the different students awarded different levels. And again, this was from a group that I worked with in a workshop. I scroll out again. So previously, that other example was linked to activity completion. This one is linked to event monitoring, so it's a lot more automatic. So going on in the background in Moodle is the event monitoring system, which is kind of recording lots of activity that the users are doing. And so, for instance, Moodle will know if users have created a new forum post, let's say, or uploaded a piece of work to something. So what it does is it only looks at a particular part of the event monitoring in Moodle. One of the areas that are monitored in Moodle is the educational level participating. So it only ties into that part. So things like, just general maintenance of a course or that kind of thing, or anything that's not considered educational, it doesn't monitor. And it awards different points depending on what the user has done. So it's based on the CRUD system, so create, read, update, delete. So again, by default, it won't give any, it would give a lot more. So there we go, there's an example there, 45 points when something is created. So if the event monitor picks up that something is created by the student, then it awards them a lot more points than if the student has just read something. So I think that particular plugin, of course, it doesn't actually check if the student has read it, but if it's just been displayed on the student's page. But that particular plugin, I think, is really powerful, and you could do a bunch of cool stuff there, kind of creating a whole course which is gamified. You've got everything. You've got levels. You've got the idea of progression. You've got that kind of engagement with new stuff appearing. So I think you could do quite a lot with that plugin. I've used it in workshops and things like that, but I'd love to use it with a big group of students in an educational context. I think it looks really cool. So that kind of brings me to the end of what I wanted to share with you guys today. There's a couple more, just some resources and links and things. Fred, who is one of the keynotes, I teach with Moodle, he did a really interesting little study into difference between gamified and non-gamified courses. So basically split his students into two and presented the same materials, but gamified the courses with one bunch of students, and with the others he didn't. But go and have a look at Fred's stuff, and I won't tell you the findings, but it's really interesting, and it's got all data to back it up. So that's really cool. That's worth a look. There's also Natalie Denamede. So she did this a couple of years ago, Moodle for motivating learners. If you Google Natalie Denamede Moodle for motivating learners poster, yeah, so Natalie based it on Joyce's one that she did, looking at which different Moodle activities are more useful for different levels of thinking. But so Natalie's kind of put it into a gamification context using these are Bartle's player types, which is a particular kind of gamification methodology. So Bartle categorized all the people in a game into kind of 4 different areas: achievers, explorers, socializers, killers. And Natalie kind of went through and categorized all the different Moodle activities which would be most useful for these particular type of gameplay. So you'd need to do some kind of initial sorting of your students to work out which kind of players they are. But this was quite cool, and I kind of worked a little bit with Natalie on this and kind of read through some of her earlier drafts and gave her feedback, and that was quite a useful process for me to kind of get me thinking a little bit more about gamification. Okay, thank you, Maureen. So that kind of brings me to the end. All the images in this presentation were off of Pixabay. So if you're looking for Creative Commons no attribution pictures for your presentations, strongly suggest you go over there. It's some great resources. Thank you, Guido. And that's about it. I guess one other little takeaway. Just taking these ideas and kind of cramming them into a Moodle course, it doesn't make it fun, doesn't turn it into a gamified Moodle course. It's, you know, the big thing, which I said at the start, is all about planning. It takes a long time to really think about how you're going to plan a gamified Moodle course, and what style as well, what style of gamified Moodle course you want to create. So, you know, don't just go away and try and fill everything with badges and conditional activities. You know, make sure you think about it carefully and plan it all out first. So thank you ever so much for your time today, for coming to hear me talk. And if there's any questions, if there's anything that you'd like to ask, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, so if there's no questions, I'll just say once again, thank you very much for coming to talk. And that's it from me. Enjoy the rest of the iMoot. And I'll see you guys around. I'm presenting again tomorrow. Or tomorrow for me might even be later today for you, but I will be I'll be nice and refreshed because it's quite late here. So thanks, guys. I'm going to stop the recording.